Hi, I'm Dan Schinder.
And I'm Steven Schinder.
And we are Yesshift, and we are thrilled to have our guest, Mike Tiano, on board with us. And if you're a true Yes fan, you know that Mike Tiano is part of what we refer to as the Yes extended family. He took over Notes of the Edge in the very early days. We'll talk about that. He's got a wonderful new album out. We'll talk about that. So let's all geek out first on some Yesage and Notes from the Edge. Mike, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys. Thanks for asking me.
Thanks. We're really excited to have you. I want to tell the audience that shortly before we got on, Mike emailed both Steve and I, and he had some screenshots that I like. This never occurred to me. Screenshots of Steve writing to Notes from the Edge, maybe like 3 different things, way back when Steve was 14. He's 27 now.
Yeah, 14,
that was a trip. Thanks for sharing that with us.
That was really cool. It was cool.
And I've had to bite my tongue for a long time, so I have to let this out. I've been telling Steve this for weeks, and I alluded to.
Come on.
Okay, here's my Notes from the Edge, I guess, anecdote or trivia. So, 1997 probably, or 6. I got on the internet, like a lot of people with Windows 95. It put most consumers on the internet at that time who got on the internet. Notes from the Edge was the third website I found. First was, don't ask why, first was Tabasco. Second was Chris Squire. And within the same day, I found Notes from the Edge, and it was the first thing I ever subscribed to. And it was like one of my first internet experiences, let alone journalistic experiences, let alone related to Yes. So that's kind of my little connection in history to you through Notes from the Edge.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that goes back forever. Steve was like 2, I guess, 1 or 2 at the time.
Like, I didn't start reading until it was sometime during the Yes hiatus. Like,
Well, wait, you didn't start reading that until then. You read before then.
Oh, yeah, I should clarify. Yeah, I'd read before then, Goosebumps, Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. But yeah, like the Notes from the Edge interviews would be posted on Yes World during the hiatus. And then in about 2009, I pretty much went through the entire backlog, and it was quite a trip seeing like all the varying opinions of everything from like right before Union up to like the present at that time. It was really,
and those opinions haven't stopped now that social media
like it was pretty split.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Mike, that's kind of like my first question. What do you think about, and I know everyone, my dad used to say you're entitled to your opinion even if it's wrong, but like everyone is entitled to their opinion. And I know that some people, and we'd love to get yours, some people are so in love with certain aspects of certain lineups and iterations of Yes. Some are so much on the other side of saying, this is not Yes, that's not Yes, this is Yes. It's mind-boggling. And I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with people being negative about it. If you don't like something, you don't have to call it bad. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean it sucks. And I think people express that opinion too much. What are your thoughts on that whole Yes verse?
Well, people, what they say about opinions. Like, I won't go into that dirty anecdote there, but you know what I'm saying. Everybody's got an opinion, and some people are just really passionate about their feelings about a band like Yes. I think what it comes down to, for me at least, is that it's not really so much the lineup, it's the material that comes from that lineup. When I think of Yes, I think of specifically what John Anderson and Chris Squire brought to it, and not to them as members per se, but they were influenced by the Beatles, by the Byrds, by Simon and Garfunkel. So they had that really melodic content, and they had those catchy melodies. And you remember those melodies, you sang those melodies. What I'm finding with the current version of Yes is that I don't find that material there. I've listened to the stuff. I try to keep it open mind. I want Yes to have a great album like everybody else. But if I can't grasp onto the melodies. There's nothing for me to grasp onto that's tuneful. And you'll probably hear me use that word a lot, especially in relation to my album. If it's not tuneful and there's nothing catchy, then there's nothing for me to grasp onto. It doesn't matter how great they're playing. And that's not just true with the Yes. It's true with a lot of bands, prog or not. If they come up with songs where the melodies just aren't there, they just aren't happening, then they're not going to grab the listener. So back to your original question, I think people are passionate about that. I think maybe I hit the nail on the head there. If they came up with some tunes to where, hey, that's really catchy, I really enjoyed that, then maybe they'd overlook the fact that Chris and John were there. But I think it's not so much that the people themselves aren't there, but it's what those members brought from their own background and their own influences to Yes. So
it's like Bill Bruford mentioned something I just love that touches on the essence of what you're talking about, and that is, I thought I was joining a jazz band with Fifth Dimension type vocals, right? And and if you look at Relayer and Open Your Eyes in the latter lineup, they're only two members apart, and with an extra member in Billy Sherwood. But if you look at the five, drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and keyboards, there's only two members different, or one member different, right? And that's interesting. And I personally love that versatility. But as much as Open Your Eyes is not loved by a lot of people, it has some wonderful lush vocals and things like that you're talking about in some of those hooks. Whereas
hooks,
I do agree that's kind of missing from
it does have catchiness to it, I'll admit.
I love that album, I really do. And I love the latter even more. It's one of my favorite albums. It's very tuneful, as you say, and it's very representative of their playing. That's absolutely Steve Howe's combination of styles. That's Chris all the way. I saw someone comment the other day saying that the latter seems like a John Anderson solo album.
No,
I just can't find that any direction I look at it from. But that's what makes us differences of fans, right?
Yeah, and the latter had an additional problem in that the producer, I'm sorry, his name escapes me, in
Bruce
Vancouver.
Fairbairn.
I'm sorry?
Bruce Fairbairn, the
Bruce
producer of Ladder.
He died before the album was completed. I mean, they did all the principal recording
during the mixing.
Who knows what it would have sounded? Who knows what it would have sounded like in the end if Bruce Fairbairn actually handled the final production? Maybe it wouldn't have been that different. I don't know, but it had that disadvantage kind of going for it. And the Ladder had some really good tunes. I keep hoping that they resurrect the Homeworld. That was a pretty cool tune.
That'd be such a great surprise.
Anything from that. And I also find that interesting about the current lineup. I do like these album series things that they do, but I would love a diverse set list. Like one of the episodes that Steve and I'm going to sneak this out, Steve, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I don't know if he knows what I'm going to say, but I think it'd be fun for people to name their top one or two songs that are their least favorites and see what kind of set list that comes up with. It might actually be pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, even if they did a set list where it was just all 90s Yes songs, I would applaud the diversity of that.
But I think that'd be a really good idea. But I think what's telling is that when Yes go on tour, you didn't hear a whole big chunk of Heaven and Earth. You didn't hear a whole big chunk of, probably won't hear a whole big chunk of The Quest. There'll probably maybe one or two tunes, and there'll be Starship Trooper and Yours No Disgrace and Roundabout, blah 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 blah.
Right.
You know, that to me says a lot about how much they think about the material.
You know what though? That's very interesting, but I have to say, in contrast to the possibility of what that says, when they did the Tormato tour, the only thing they played from the previous album was Awakened. They didn't play Going for the One. They didn't play Wonder Stories. They didn't play Parallels. And I thought that was weird.
I think I read that on certain shows they did play Parallels, but you're right. You're right. But that was like an exception. It wasn't like one of
You would think a previous album is so recent. Why not bring some of it with you, right?
Yeah, and have with drama. You heard nothing from Tormato and drama, you know?
Right.
It's like, and I said that, it's funny you say that, Dan, because I said the exact same thing at the time, is that, you know, it's really telling, or unfortunately, yes, forgets the whole last album of the current tour.
And it was the return of Rick Wakeman. It had some short songs that were big on radio play, which is huge considering a follow-up to Relayer that had 3 songs. You know, the whole thing was weird. But that's, yes, it's so weird, some of the things they do. Will they finally break a record? No pun intended. Will they finally break their record and record 3 albums with the same lineup for the very first time in 50 plus years? And if so, what's that going to sound like?
Yeah. I mean, another thing that Yes brought, for me at least, was emotion. You know, I still tear up at the studio version of Close to the Edge. And actually, I have been working on an article on Close to the Edge. And I even spoke to Eddie Alford a couple of years ago about this, and reached out to all the Yes members. And basically, at the time of Close to the Edge, and you may know what I'm talking about, is that at the final section, On the Hill We View the Silence of the Valley, they changed the key from the album version to the live version, and it doesn't hit you the same way. And the thing is, I discovered, I'll let you in on this as a little plus for you. Word escapes me.
Peek beyond the curtain.
Peek beyond the curtain. Basically, I found recordings where in England, when they first toured Close to the Edge, they played it exactly like the album, exactly. Really? And when they came to America, John said, "I can't sing that high," so they brought it down from like an F to an E flat, I think, something like that. So it came down like a whole key, and which changed the way John sang the melody. But when you listen to Close to the Edge, I mean, if you're a real Yes fan like we are, then when it comes to that point, On the Hill We View the Silence of the Valley, it's like
you're waiting for it to do that.
And what really makes it is the melody. It's On the Hill We View the Silence of the Valley. They're singing it the exact same melody they sang the previous 2 times, but you know, and now they're singing On the Hill We View the Silence of the Valley. I mean, it sounds minor, but really, I think to Yes fans like us, it really makes a difference. And, and the other thing about that is that, if I can just finish this thought, is that the first 2 times you hear that section, John sings it alone. But here it's like multiple versions of, you know, of John and Chris and Steve singing this, and just comes wham right at you. Yeah. And so I think the melody is very important there. So I remember it brought tears to my eyes. It still brings tears to my eyes when I listen to it. It's hard for me to listen to it without getting all emotional, choked up. And it's not, and nothing artificial. And that carries over to other songs. It's like, the first time I saw Yes in the Round in 1978, they started Future Times. Yeah. I just started sobbing for some reason. I just just
that's such a great song.
Celebratory sound of that just grabbed me. And I don't think I cried. Others I saw them like 5 times on the Round tour, 2 in 78 and 3 in 79 or something like that. But I just started crying, like, and I couldn't explain why. It just affected me so much. Yeah. So that's another thing, but that's tied to the melodies, including the hooks. And I think, and that's not what I'm not finding in the current version of Yes. But you know, to each their own. If you like what you're hearing, and the criteria to me is, if you could listen to that and not know it's Yes, and say you like it, that's different. But you know, that's kind of a hard thing to do. I'm sorry. Steve,
no, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Steve.
Oh no, earlier I was just saying that we like to obsess over the details, but to your point, like, Yes is it gets us very emotional. And for me personally, there are some recent things that get me emotional, like close to that same level. Like I might be the odd one out, but A Living Island does that for me. But like you said, like to each their own. Like it's music, it's subjective, and it's gonna hit each of us differently.
And if Mike hasn't heard this, tell him what your most favorite Yes song is. I don't know if I'll say the one I'm thinking of, because it's kind of a surprise.
Abilene.
I mean, I do love that song, but my favorite is The Revealing Science of God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I was thinking of a different one. One of his other favorite songs is a total contrast to that. It's Holy Lamb.
Oh, that's my favorite
Really?
Big Generator.
Yeah, that's yeah. And I think that's interesting given that album has all kinds of great music, but there's something about that song that resonates with him.
Yeah, like it gets me very emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. For me,
Big Generator is really, really underrated. I hear a lot of people say, Big Generator, but I'm running. I mean, there's just so many good, even like all about what's all about love or
almost like love.
Almost like love.
Yeah, I mean, shoot high, aim low.
Before I knew how bands actually prepared set lists, my wife and I would go to those Big Generator concerts, all about love, all about love. they never heard me, obviously, but
turn of the century is, and folks, chime in on any of this. If you're watching, if you're listening, we want to hear from you too. What song makes you tear up? For me, I cannot listen to any version of Turn of the Century without it just being heart-wrenching. And I tear up from the very first time I heard it when I was 15. I can't help myself come to tears. It's such a sad freaking song.
And it doesn't have beautiful. It doesn't have to literally bring tears. It's just something wells up to you, like, especially after they come out of the song, and see how they're
and the vocals and the story just brings a lump to my throat. It's just one of those things. Let's talk about Notes from the Edge.
Okay,
you spent a good amount of time doing that. That's how I found out about you 100 years ago when the earth was still cooling, and I got on the internet, which didn't work if there was a squirrel on the line outside.
A mold. Okay, you made the point.
I don't think we're that far apart.
No. Well, you're still dark. I'm not.
I'm lucky.
It's dark.
You got a little more of that than I do. Yeah.
But it's dark. It's dark.
It is dark. Steve, you're a journalist. Why don't you go ahead and lead with questions about Notes from the Edge? And then after we cover that, we're going to talk about Mike's new album, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah. So with Notes from the Edge, was there ever an interview or, like, I know it's hard to choose favorites, but was there ever like an interview where you're like, oh, this is like my great's accomplishment so far?
A bucket list, maybe.
Yeah, like a bucket list type of thing. Yeah.
That's a really tough one.
Maybe not just the who, but the when of it was, because I'm sure you interviewed them multiple times.
The funny thing is, I think in retrospect, there were so many, and I still have the tapes for all those things. And I even have a couple that were never published for some reason. In fact, I have one with Jeff Downs and Peter Banks at Yesshift that I never published. That I in fact, I was intending on we were talking about books earlier before the interview. I intended on compiling all my interviews into a book, and I would include the ones like that never really made it. But that's funny you mentioned that then, because I think I'd have to name that one, because I had lots of great interviews with Steve, tons with Steve, a couple with Rick, a couple with Chris. I guess I have to sing a lot talking about Chris Squire, Swiss Squire, which wasn't too long before he died, I think. But I think that one probably is just there with Jeff Downs and Peter Banks, two generations of just discussing stuff. And
by the way, we're about 4 Yes generations or 5 apart from each other too,
or albums, not generations.
Well, iterations maybe.
Iterations. Okay, iterations.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Steve, I think I have a point to that one, because just sitting there with those 2 Yes members, that was really, really memorable.
Can you give an anecdote from that interview? Maybe a memorable point?
No, I don't. I haven't heard that interview in years.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Publish that book. I think that'd be a fantastic book. There's nothing else.
Okay, well, good. Well, thanks. One thing I do want to do is make clear about the origins and Notes from the Edge. Is it okay if I do that?
Yeah, please.
Because people come and they talk to me or they write about me. They said, Mike Tiano started Notes from the Edge. I didn't start it.
Right.
Kathy Leak and Mike Barella started it. I believe those are the two that started it.
And what year?
Yeah,
I know you took it over in '93. When did they
actually,
start?
how about Jeff Honeycutt got involved? I think because he had a server source and had a place for them to live. And then when I discovered through mailing lists, this was before there was a website really about Notes from the Edge. There was a mailing list. I joined it, and I have to show you the story because this is how I got involved with Yes. So I learned that Alan White lived nearby. He lives in Bellevue, which is like I said, the adjoining.
He moved there from my neighborhood right before the Northridge earthquake.
But I learned he lived nearby, and I thought, God, how can I talk to Alan White? I thought, I know, I'll have a little seminar where Alan White comes to talk about MIDI. I mean, that wasn't really my intent. I just wanted Alan White to come to Microsoft to talk about answer those questions I had about why did you release anymore, that type of thing. And so that's why I got to know Alan White. And then after that, and once so I thought, wouldn't it be great to get an interview with Alan and get it out there fast? Because really only had at that time, I think, like Guess Magazine, which was a really, really well-produced magazine. Gottlieb Brothers did a great job with that, but it takes a long time to actually publish that and get it out to fans.
Right.
Whereas I thought I could have an interview with Alan out within a couple of weeks because this new thing called the internet that everybody's plugged into, they'd be able to see that. So
and a couple of weeks was quick back then. That's funny.
Yeah. No, but you have to have time for an interview to actually transcribe it.
Sure.
And at the time, I was kind of clueless about that. I'll be honest about that. I would write every word they said, and if all those would be in there. I got a little bit smarter about that, but I got out quickly, and I thought, wow, this is great. And so I asked Jeff Honeycutt, do you mind if I do this at Notes from the Edge? And he said, absolutely. Jeff wanted to get involved with Yes. So that's how I got involved as a co-editor. And basically, what I brought to Notes from the Edge, if I could continue, I don't want to talk over you guys.
Please. Yeah.
It was really just a bounce list. Anything you sent to it, Jeff would compile. So if you had someone say, yeah, I really like John Anderson. Okay. I wanted to be more like a journal, and to where it would be edited and be cohesive. And I'd be particular about about the posts I publish. I wouldn't be editorial in the sense that that if I didn't agree with the opinion, no, I'm not going to publish that.
Right.
The only things I left out were the things that were crap or not interesting. But people would say, "Oh, you're censoring it now. You're censoring it." No, does Time Magazine censor things they get? No, they just choose which ones to publish. So, so I brought some cohesion to Notes from the Edge as far as that goes. But ultimately, answer your question. That's how I got involved.
And how did you end up how did the torch get passed? Did they just not want to do it anymore? Did they have other commitments?
I don't know that story. I know that story, and in preparation for the interview, I wanted to clear that up, but I couldn't find that. I think maybe they just got tired of it or just moved on to other things.
Maybe they got tired of the lineup changes and didn't know how to write about it.
No, the guy said there weren't that many lineup changes. I guess there was. It wasn't that long ago, was it? but all these people had their own little journals, like Music News Network with Christine Holtz and Lisa Makita. They did a great job with that. I don't know if you remember that. Dan, and Nick Cachopo had his thing. I can't remember what it was called. And the Tanya Code. Lives in Vancouver. I still communicate with during the holidays. Hope to hear from her. Her and her husband Cal Weeks. And so there are a lot of different Yes journals, but I had the first opportunity to present an internet Yes journal. So and so people would have the submissions, and Brian Jensen, one of the staff members that I recruited, did a really great job as far as coming up with a tool to where I wouldn't have to take so much time going to Word or whatever the editing program was and have to format it, because that took a lot of time, But so he really streamlined that, so it made it a lot easier. And I could write my own editorials there too. I recall I did one really good one about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I thought about bringing that back, I mean, in terms of archival, because what happened was ultimately was Facebook and Twitter came out, I thought this is the new paradigm. For me to keep editing a journal is going to seem archaic, because here people can respond to each other in real time. So that's kind of
can I comment on that?
Sure. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that Stephen proved with a comment earlier, maybe, I don't remember if it was before we got on or after, when we talked about his archived posts that you found. But I think that if you were to have this lexicon of all the notes from the edge, notes, if you will, I think Yes fans like us and like Stephen would love plowing. We all like, I think most true fans of any band or anything, like the history of, nostalgia, the archival stuff. And just like Steve, who just raked through everything, I think that people would go back and, I still have magazines back here that I got in the 70s and the early 80s of my favorite artists, Zeppelin, Yes, Rush, old interviews, and they're fun to pull out.
Rush.
And like the Beatles thing that's out right now.
Beatles.
Just go back in time and experience what are people saying back then. That's what your work would do if you were to publish all that on a website that's archival and trickle it out onto Facebook, for instance, as teasers to drive them to the web. I think there's a huge value. Steve, what do you think of that?
Well, there's two things about that. First of all, how old are you, Dan?
I'll be 59 in April.
So you weren't really cognizant or around during the Ed Sullivan Show, right?
Correct.
The old Ed Sullivan Show,
right?
And so I lived through all that, and I may be an old guy, and people make fun of that, But
how old are you?
I'm 68.
Okay, yeah, I never would have thought that. I would have thought you were like
so I was like, I just turned 10. I just turned 10 when the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show in early 1964, and it took me a while to get into them. I was just a stupid kid. I was like, oh, who is the ugliest Beatle? Ringo, because he has that big nose. Kids in the schoolyard. But I saw Hard Day's Night, and that totally converted me. Then it was like, oh man.
Yeah, I remember seeing that as a little kid. Yeah.
Yeah, like the running to the train and all that.
Yeah, but going back to your question, Dan, there's two things that I would need to do. One is I need to consider monetizing it somehow possible. I mean, not rip people off or anything, or present. I don't want to present tons of ads,
Right, but it's just it takes time and energy. And
maybe it's a subscription thing or something. I don't know.
We'll talk about that. I'll talk to you about that another time. We'll set up a call.
Cool.
But Steve, what do you think about that? As a Yes fan, would that interest you? Do you agree with me that it would probably interest most people, just like old magazine interviews, to be able to go back, Steve?
It would definitely interest a fraction of the fandom, at least. I'm just not sure what that fraction is.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but I think there is an audience, though.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Monetization is the first thing I think about. Second thing is I need to strip out all the email addresses, because people have written me after I stopped publishing and say, my boss is searching for my name and finding that I did this Yes thing. And I said, it's not like, it was anything really contentious, but for some reason, they don't want their names found in some internet search, regardless. So I'd have to go in, and because we would put the person's name, like you probably saw Steve Schindler and that Chewbacca thing.
Yeah.
I saw that. That old email.
I can see that maybe people would be worried about other people emailing them through those addresses.
But that would be easy to remove. And I'll give you one word for that, Mike. Ready?
Yeah.
Intern.
You have to an intern. You have to provide an intern with some value. I mean, and, I can't pay an intern. I mean, but no, you're right. Maybe get some people who actually want to help out with that thing.
Yeah,
because it's just going through each issue and just stripping out the email address.
You can find college interns that would do that. They'll do it I just hired an intern who's graduating in May from Penn State. And he's on a program where he's starting to do some work for us now. And I said, the internship that he's actually getting credit for. I had an interview with him and his professor who manages the internship program to make sure it's legit and all that stuff. And she gave the approval, signed off on it. And I told him, look, I have work for you now. And typically when we hire an intern, it turns, if they stay with us and we want them to stay with us, I don't want to keep training people. That costs money if there's turnover. Right. So it's a 90-day, you work for free program. And I was real upfront with him. I said, if you're happy working for us and we're happy with you, I'll start paying you before that. And you'll still be on a internship. When your new semester starts, you'll be getting credit for that. And by that time you're working for us. And when he gets out of school, when he graduates, the goal is he's a full-time employee, and we're thrilled to have him. And his major is in marketing with an emphasis on consumer behavior. Mm-hmm. So he's helping us with some stuff in the background regarding, like, this is for Drum Talk TV, regarding surveys and stuff like that. And I'm already thinking of things he can do for my marketing company, which I have that came out of Drum Talk TV. So there's definitely opportunities for you to get some college students that are Yes fans that want to geek out on this stuff, and just to be a part of it. Oh my God, I get to work with the Notes from the Edge guy. Or someone might say, F that, I'm not working with the notes. No, just kidding. But just a simple task like that, to remove email addresses and scan through, like, whoa, look at this treasure chest. I'm first to see it before. There's opportunity for you there. I know that there is.
Yeah. The thing is, you just made me think about something. It's probably not just email addresses in the headers, saying who wrote the article, right? But there might be addresses embedded into the actual text itself, right? And I have to replace that with something. But
they could simply copy and paste it onto a running document for you, and then we'll talk about that. I'm happy.
But you're right. I have a treasure trove of I have the old ASCII ones, which are just like the S logo and dashes and slashes.
Yeah,
and then I turned out
really cool.
You remember that?
And then it turned out HTML, the various iterations.
I remember that. You should publish that at least. But yeah, I heard you have a new album out.
Yeah, were you talking about Yes? You're going to come back to that.
Let's talk about your album, because I want people to know about this.
Okay, well, ask me a specific question. I could talk for hours about my album, but what do you want to know?
So first, Steve and I will give everybody an honest review. And folks, if you don't have this album, Mike will tell you how to get it, but get it. And also, as always, Steve and I don't really, believe it or not, talk about this stuff before we do an episode. The way Yesshift, I almost said the old name, the way Yesshift came about is that Steve and I, as happen to be father and son, big Yes fans, we would talk about
father, this. I'm the son.
Right, just to be clear. we would talk about this stuff all the time. And one day I said, we should do a podcast. We're always talking about this. They're always, deep, long conversations. And he said, really, you'd want to do that? And I'd say, yeah, I'd make time for that. And we started it. And when we started it, we don't talk through the whole thing. We don't script it. Steve puts together some great bullet point notes just to keep me on the leash, basically. And so we've heard some of, we both have it. Hold yours up, Steve. And folks, you see the graphic on the player, but we just to prove we have it. We listened to it on a long road trip we went on recently to visit other family, and then we listened to it separately, and we haven't discussed it whatsoever. We haven't discussed it, so I don't even know. For all I know, Steve hates it. I have no idea. So Steve, really, why don't you go first, give a quick review. I'll give a quick review, and then Mike will ask you some specific questions about.
Let me preface this by saying, if you found something to like on there, then that means a lot to me, because I don't like everything. It's something to me. Especially if they say we're going to talk about the album, I think I'm going to say some things, diplomatic stuff about this beforehand. But I don't absolutely like everything, so there might be some things you like, some things you don't care as much about. But I'm just saying that's okay. That's the preface I tell people when I'm playing a song for the first time with the album. Say, you don't like it, and you really, really despise it, tell me, I'll turn it off. But no one's ever told me to do that, and more often than not, it's like.
Well, I'll let Steve start. Let's see if there's anything on it that he likes.
Okay, so the album titled Creatis Van.
Creators Van.
Yeah, Creators Van. So I really like it, and the first listen, the opening track, "There Behind You," took me by surprise because it's kind of the "I would have waited forever" effect, where it starts with like the singing right away, like "There's
That's a
somebody
great analogy.
there." But it's very catchy. Like the keyboards sound really spacey in the beginning, which I love. Um, and throughout this thing, there are shades of your influences. I can hear like I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the telephone ringing on hold always makes me think of Pink Floyd. The song "Time," and that
And
that
from the wall.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that situation of being on hold on the phone and just having to like deal with that is just something that many people can relate to. So like I really liked that.
Every time I
Constant
call you. Just kidding.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just trying to collect myself. And a Constant Companion, I could hear a Beatles influence in the way the singing sounds. And I'm sure you'll touch upon this after my brief overview, but
Sure.
I remember being surprised by like how it ends abruptly. Like it doesn't continue until like the penultimate track, "Because You Win," and so on subsequent listens, it's like, okay, I know it's coming later, and it's more satisfying, like knowing that,
Yeah.
Um, I also, so we also got these other tracks, "The Dark Ages," some really great lyrics, "Dance of the Little Guys," instrumental that sounds really good. It kind of has an "And You and I" feel to it.
I agree.
A bit of John Anderson's "Hear It"
A
as
12
well, I
string.
think. Yeah. Different Drummer is definitely one of my favorites. Like it has kind of a Floyd feel to my ears, and it's really cool that you got Billy Sherwood to work with you on that one. I'm curious to hear more about that. Automaton, very catchy. It has that machinery sound, and uh, like I'm so used to the pronunciation automaton because of the
Automaton.
because of the movie Hugo, but hearing it like
Yeah, I know. I know. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
yeah.
So don't worry about that.
Yeah, but hearing the way it's sung, like automaton, and how it's like repeated, it's like very catchy. So that
Well, and
one,
briefly, it's like that's really more mechanical. Automaton, there's an accent on the second syllable, but
yeah,
it's automaton, automaton.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that is really catchy. It really sticks with me as an earworm, so to speak. A Natural and the Evergreens also really good. So it's Triad and it touched on "Because You Win," and then Emerge Triumphant. It's such a great title for like the closing song. It kind of feels like a thesis statement to the whole thing, so to speak. So yeah, I guess my top songs on this would be "Different Drummer," "Automaton," and I think "Constant Companion" and "Because You Win" together. So yeah, that's my take. What about you, Dad?
So, and folks, this is not an ass kissing session. Steve and I are very honest about if we don't like something, we'll say so. But there's nothing we don't like about this. And Mike, first of all, good job. Great job. One of the things I love about it is if I didn't understand English, and sometimes I don't, but if I didn't understand the lyrics and stuff, I do love the melodicism of it all. It is tuneful. And one of the things I love about the whole thing from beginning to end that's very congruent is a big, beautiful, nice, full production. That's one of the things that caused me to immediately fall in love with Asia. Well, after the first song. But when I first put this on, I thought, wow, I have no idea what he sounds like. I wonder what the music's going to sound like and what's going to be my favorite. So I'm listening along. And when it got to track 4, I thought, okay, I think this is my favorite so far. And then I listened to it a couple more times. And then I got to the next song. That's Dark Ages, by the way, people, the Dark Ages. Right. And then I got to Dance of the Little Guys. And my digital readout on my truck stereo didn't show the whole title. So I had to pause it and look at it to see the name of it. Or I asked you, Steve, I don't remember. And so then I thought, okay, that one's my favorite, Dance of the Little Guys. And then different drummer comes on and I'm like, you know what, I'm not picking a favorite now. But it's almost like for me, it graduated, it like got better and better and better for me. And one of the other things I love about it, I mentioned the congruency in the production. There's certainly a congruency in the way you sound and the way the instruments sound, and not just production wise, but the style of the music and the songs. They all sound like they belong on the same album, which is great. This is your first attempt at an album, correct?
Yes.
So often when we hear first albums, even from what become big bands, we don't always find that. It can sometimes be eclectic. It's their first time writing a bunch of songs together. Some of them end up on an album and you get this salad of songs, and some of the ingredients.
Yeah, right.
Whereas this all really fits together, and it to a point where these song orders could have been scrambled a little bit and it wouldn't take anything away or add, because it all fits, if that makes sense. I want to point out also, I've been into art my whole life. My mother was an artist. I drew and painted from the time I was young. My wife is a professional artist. And looking at, and you're seeing it on the screen, folks, the inside cover, I knew there was a story behind this. That is just so cool. Like I had to get this out, but I got lost in like, okay, I know there's got to be some Easter eggs in here, like Patrick Moraz is always late, like Chris. No, there's not. But tell a story about that inside cover, going all the way back to when you were a senior in high school.
Yeah. Basically, first of all, it's tied to the title. I was an aspiring cartoonist when I was a kid. I really wanted to be a cartoonist, and then as I came of age, and in the swinging, the psychedelic '60s, certain mind-altering drugs kind of influenced me as far as what I drew. And so one year, my senior year in high school, like 1970, that Christmas, for all my friends, my close friends, I took a big piece of poster board and I put their name in the middle, and I drew all these little vignettes happening all around it. And I gave them each one of that, and I thought that's such a cool concept. I'm going to continue that. But so basically, it mainly happened when I went to a party. So give me a piece of paper, and I got a felt tip pen, and right there on the spot, I would draw these little things. And I wanted to give them a name. I used my initials, Mott. That was like the brand name, Mott Cretus Fan. Cretus Fan was a product. That's what so it was, Mott Cretus Fan. And I really drew like maybe a few dozen of these, and I give them to people, and only like 4 or 5 survive. They're in my possession. I wish I had more. Eventually, I got to a point to where I got a little more ambitious. I was really influenced by the artwork of, say, R. Crumb. So I bought myself a rapidograph, and that I can be really detailed in terms of what I did. And in retrospect, I looked at those, and they're not nearly as effective for me as the one felt tip pen thing. So that's something that's tied to me. So I started thinking about creating the album, which are songs that I've written throughout my adulthood. It's not like I wrote in one small block. It's like the songs are spread out throughout my adulthood. I didn't want to call it something that was kind of artificial, like the blue clouds or something, or something like that. I want to be specific to me as far as what we call. And so I thought, well, a Cretus Fan is specific to me, and it would be cool to kind of work the artwork into it as well, so people get a sense of me as an artist, artist being in the broad sense of the word. I asked a friend of mine named Alex Vogel if he would handle coloring, because I saw some of his work, and so they're all black and white. He just added all the colors in there. And so what you're seeing there is like a compilation of like 3 different Cretus Fans. So I took them all, I arranged them with different places, and just to kind of fill in some of the segues, Alex put a couple of minor things in there. And so when I was thinking about the album title, I thought, well, I like the create, because it's a creation is what I do. So let me put an accent over the second E and call it creators fan. I toyed with putting an A there, but I think I'll look terrible, and I think this achieved my goal. It's caused me a little bit of pain, and I won't go into the damn accent, but basically I'm glad I called it that. So that's how I went from creators fan to creators fan, and that's pretty much of the story behind the artwork.
Cool. That's really neat. I have a couple questions before we go about the recording process, but before I get us into that, I think Steve was going to ask a question about Because You Win and Constant Companion and that link. Did you want to ask about that, Steve?
Yeah, so basically, what was the thought process of like sort of cutting Constant Companion short and then finishing it later with Because You Win? Like, you have a story behind that, don't you?
Oh yeah. I have a reason for that, and I'm glad you asked me, because I wanted to tell this. I think it's a great story. I was thinking about Because You Win. I was thinking about getting some people together and doing an homage to my wife, as it were. And Constant Companion melody is the same as the bridge of Because You Win. I'd already written Because You Win. So it's basically that instead of you win all that you wanted, you win all that you need, it's constant companion, final friend. So it's more of a chant. I want to include that somehow. But originally I thought I'd make it like a all good people thing, 2 parts. So we have constant companion, go straight into Because You Win. But I really like Because You Win as a standalone song. I think it's stronger that way in a way. So I thought of something, one of my big influences, Jimi Hendrix, had done on Electric Ladyland. And Jimi Hendrix, I don't talk about just from a instrumental standpoint in terms of his proficiency in the instrument, but basically from a production standpoint. Electric Ladyland is like one of the landmark albums for me. It's really, really a big album. And I think for anybody who really enjoys rock and roll, that is an album to really explore. So what Jimmy did on Electric Ladyland was beginning of side 3, he would start with A Rainy Day Dream Away. You know, it's kind of, are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Yep.
If you're not Steve? Steven?
I would need to dig it up. It's possible I've heard it, but I would
you got it. This album is a must. It's really a must. But anyway,
okay.
So he does A Rainy Day Dream Away. It's like a slow bluesy thing, and then it stops short and it goes into Still Raining, Still Dreaming, and it was just like more of an upbeat thing, and then that fades immediately. And then on side 4, that was on side 3. On side 4, that's where it makes its full return. And I thought, since I really don't want just one song with the constant companion and Because You Win, I'll take that tag. And it's all part of the concept of being an album, It's not just a collection of
with
songs.
A reprise.
It goes back to what you were saying, Dan. Really, it's an album. It's cohesive. It unfolds. My whole opinion about music in general, and this goes back to Yes songs as well, is how music unfolds is how it grabs you. And as it unfolds, if it grabs you as it unfolds,
it's a story that way.
Its job. If it's unfolding, it's not really doing anything for you. Then it's not in your wheelhouse.
Right.
I want the whole concept of the album, and that's where the artwork comes in. To be honest with you, Steve, sorry, Dan. What you're saying earlier, I at some point I want to release this in vinyl. My original concept was to have this vinyl, and the artwork would be really, really big. And and actually, originally when I was conceiving the CD, that was the outside, and the outside was the inside.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but the thing is, I got a hard time from CD Baby because he said, "No, the title's not displayable enough." And the title would be what's on the right side of the inside cover. So I kind of gave in because I don't want to say too much, but if you take a close look at my artwork, there's a couple of things that might not pass muster, say at Walmart or something.
Right.
I'm gonna have to. Oh, I see one right away.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'll just, I like the photo of me against the Seattle skyline, and the guy named Chris Shantz did a great job as far as adjusting the colors there. So I kind of swapped the two, but basically it goes back to what I was saying as far as you're listening to the album. It's like Tales from Topographic Oceans. You're listening to the album, you're reading the lyrics, you're kind of digging on the artwork.
Yeah.
It was a total experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted my album to be, a total experience where you're not thinking about, ethereal, weighty issues when you look at my artwork, but hopefully it's making you laugh. And as I originally conceived, it's up to you, the viewer, to decide, now this thing next to this thing, are they related? They kind of seem related,
right.
In your mind, you may actually relate to things. So I really am happy with the way it came out in terms of the song order.
Good.
The way everything unfolds, the album cover. So it all plays into this concept of me as an artist and what I have to present. And what I present is the type of music that you don't hear anymore. This album could have come out in 1973. I think it could have been just as well embraced. It's really of that. I don't want to say it's of that era because it's not nostalgia.
But it has all the right influences that qualify that. You've got the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Rush, Pink Floyd, a flash in the pan called Yes. There's these influences in there that are certainly, if they're reflective now, like you're saying, they would have been reflective 40 years ago if it came out then. That's the way I see it. Yeah.
In fact, for me, I was just saying, sorry, for me, the ultimate harbinger would be arbiter would be play it for someone and don't set it up for them.
Yeah.
I wish I was able to say to have nobody know about this album and have a fog group, these are like 4 20-somethings or something that produced this, but just have somebody listen to it and not set them up for it. There may be someone that doesn't know me or know my music. And
right.
So just kind of see where it goes. If I know, obviously I'd be a rock and roll fan, but maybe not even that. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
And I had no idea what to expect. So it did that. But I was going to say, I don't know, Steve, do you have any other questions? I have just 2 last questions.
Yeah, I answered your question about the Constant Companion.
Yeah.
Do you have any others?
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask what it was like getting Billy Sherwood involved for a song, and Randy George for that matter, from the Neil Morse band. Like, how did all of that come together?
I want to say too much about Billy Sherwood's situation at the time, but we become really good friends, pretty good friends. And I thought, I want to see how he does on this one song. Now, different drummer is as close as I'll ever get to the blues. I mean, I respect the blues, but the blues aren't part of my being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Pure blues. I can only listen to the blues only so long because I can appreciate the playing and the musicianship and the performances, but it's basically a 1 for 5 thing, and after a while I get kind of tired of that. And I don't downgrade the blues, so please don't.
Yeah. Stop the tomatoes.
I don't want to say the wrong thing, but the thing is, this is as close as I would come to the blues, and it's really very personal because it's about a really, really old friend of mine that I had a falling out with. And it's unfortunate, but I can't go into that. But basically, I said to Billy, we were really friendly at the time, and you were talking about stuff, and he wasn't the yes or wanted to have anything to do with the yes at that time because we're getting circuit together. And I said, how much to do the song? He gave me a figure. It was really relatively low for Billy Sherwood, considering I was like 10 or 20 times that. And so he did a stellar job. And 2 days later, I had this track. And basically what I did was I gave him my demo. And I said, use the demo as a blueprint. And And
As
it's
a
uncanny
blues
because
print.
apparently I recorded the demo in some crappy 4-track, and but so the pitch was off. But when I much later got the actual tracks, he had taken my demo and had it alongside everything he was playing, and everything matched perfectly.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, but the problem was, I was kind of a little confused because he had taken some of the chords which were minor, like he would take a minor key and turn it into its relative major, which would kind of change the whole feeling of the song and my melodies. So I kind of set it aside for the longest time. So he did a masterful job with the instruments, but that one little thing kind of stopped me from of using it. I didn't know what to do. So I was working with at some point I was doing some work with Mark Miller, CHS Studios in Kirkland, and he's a great bass player. He plays bass on 5 or 6 of my songs on the album, and does a masterful job. Really great bass player. And he told me, I have this problem with the song. I want you to do it, but I don't know what to do about these minors into majors or vice versa. You know what I mean by that, right? So if it was E minor, he turned it into a G. Yeah, is what I mean. So and Mark said, I got this the digital audio workstation, this DAW, which would actually change the chords. I was like, so that's what we did. We went through the whole song, I changed the chords, and I was able to get to a state to where I could finish the song with Billy's cooperation. Basically, I have Billy as the producer because he came up with the original song, and anything I'd done afterwards, I would just give him notes to do. He would have done that. And I talked to him about that. He said, yeah, sure. I have no problem with that at all. So that's pretty much how Billy Sherwood got involved. And he does a great job. He does those bass lines in there too.
Yeah, I love that.
He plays all the guitars, he handled the drums. And as far as the production goes, he kind of had like a lot going all the time. So it's up to me to pull it back like my demo. And I had a guy named Steve Mcknight. Steve Mcknight is was in a hard rock band local to the LA area called Cry Wolf, and he's in a AC/DC gay tribute band called Gay CDC. And he's a phenomenal guitar player. He played the guitar in Automaton too. That solo on there is just phenomenal. But I asked Steve, listen to what I'm playing on my demo and kind of emulate that. And he did. If you listen to my demo along with what he played, a lot of it are like almost exactly the same. Wow. But he brought a style and finesse. I could have probably done a serviceable job, but he just made it stellar. He just took it the stratosphere. So that was the story of working with Billy and different drummer. You want to talk about Randy George?
Yeah.
Randy is an old friend. I know Randy for a long time. When I was doing Notes of the Edge, I'd seen him at shows, and you know how people would kind of gravitate towards me, because they want to get in with the S or something. I thought Randy was kind of one of those people because I didn't know him. But I came to learn that he was a great guy, and he was also a phenomenal musician. Neil Morse wasn't in the picture at that point at all. He was living up here in the Seattle area. I had kind of a job to pay the bills. And that's where we really got friendly. And actually, we were doing this concert for a Yeshift get together. I'm sorry, Yes fans get together. And so I said, hey, Randy, I will provide some of the music. And so that's where I started to get Dance of the Little. Dance of the Little Guys together. Now here's an interesting factoid about Dance of the Little Guys. Parts of it were originated in a song called "The Silence." Was the silence? The heard silence. I had to sing it to myself. The silence heard around the world, which was about the death of John Lennon.
Yeah,
I had this really. I had that portion, and so I was starting to feel my 12th string with it, and then it was that part. And Randy and I kind of worked that out together. He worked for the settle part out together. Really, I'm playing on it, and a lot of the concepts are mine, but this is Randy's production all the way. I mean, Randy is someone who I greatly respect, proud to call a friend, not just a great musician and a really great human being, but he's really knowledgeable about the business. I mean, he really knows a lot about rock and roll and the people behind rock and roll and the business behind rock and roll. He's really a great guy. And you listen to the Dance of the Little Guys. Really, all I'm doing is playing guitar and playing my parts. Really, Randy's doing everything else, and he just really made that stellar. And Randy helped in another way. That I was working with Mark Crowder on "There Behind You." That was one of my earlier songs, and Mark and I just weren't getting it. And I don't know if you know the story. No, maybe you don't. Is that Mark and I got together that this mutual friend I told you that I had falling out with. He put us together, and they told Mark that I had a bunch of songs I wanted to record, mainly for posterity. And Mark was a fledgling engineer, and so it's kind of okay. I got this home studio, called the Bat Cave. It was like a little shed outside his house. He said, "You come record your songs here, and I will charge you. I'll learn the art of engineering while you get your songs recorded." So the first one was the Dark Ages. The second one was on hold, which Mark did a masterful job on, because he played all the orchestrations. But if you listen carefully, orchestrations are following my guitar parts. Where they are, and There Behind You was the third one. But There Behind You were having some problems, and I said, "Look, can I have Randy come sit in with us?"
Wait, hold on. I have to look behind me.
So basically, I had Randy come in, and Mark was like, Mark was eager to learn from Randy, and Randy's a master, in terms of production. Randy's a master in terms of everything. And I say that with all due respect. But basically, Randy come in and he'd say, don't do that, do this here, don't do that there. One bad habit Mark had, and Mark, forgive me for telling people, you don't do this anymore, I'm sure. But basically, one bad habit you have is you go fix something, and then you move on. And Randy says, "No, you go back and listen to it." So, go back and listen to it. You want to make sure it's right. Don't just fix it and assume for the best. So that was one of the things. And there were certain things where I wanted something, and Randy said, "No, you need to pull it back in a little bit." So so I gave Randy a separate credit on my album cover, as you probably noticed. Cool. For I think it said sonic enhancements for There Behind You. That's
cool. Sometimes we need that objectivity, because we're so in it and we've lived with it so long up here that when it comes to that putting out process, like Steve writes novels and he has a group of people, thankfully includes me, a group of people that will not proof his manuscript, but they'll read his whole manuscript, and then he has a list of questions for them, like about the characters, the ending, and it's really a smart process, because if you're going to put it out to market, the goal is never to make everybody happy. We can't do that. Hey, my wife and I have 11 kids, 19 grandkids, a cat, and now a new puppy. You can't make everybody happy, believe me. But it's good to get that objectivity, because we do live in our creativity sometimes so much on our own. And some people have a total opposite approach and opinion of that. They say, "F it, what I do is what I do, and that's what I'm putting out." And whatever, whatever works. But Mike, and first of all, thanks for sharing so much of the inside scoop to putting out your first album. Congratulations on that. And folks,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, you can get it via the links that are in the post. But for those of you that are listening to the audio only that might have a shorter description, Mike, tell everybody where they can get it.
Well, actually, all the links are on MikeTiano.com.
Perfect.
I have links to Bandcamp, to PayPal. If you do it through PayPal, you're getting it directly from me, because I handle all the PayPal accounts. Great. Or you can go to Amazon and actually get them there as far as CD goes. I mean, it's streaming. You can go to various places, Apple Music and iTunes and Spotify. And
I gotta tell folks, so get the product. Get the product, because it's a work of art, not just musically, but the actual product. And I'm one of those people. I grew up learning big words by reading every word on the side of a cereal box and in the back panel. So then when I started getting albums, I read every little thing. And I love when I opened this up and saw I'm like, whoa, got out my magnifying glass. I'm in it. So get it for the artwork as well.
And there's an insert with the lyrics as well.
Yeah. You could follow along, learn the songs. It's great. I have two last questions. The first, so a lot of people don't know this. You didn't talk about this, but Mike is probably the only person that's ever recorded an album while on trial at the Hall of Justice. Just kidding. Hall of Justice is the name of the studio. And we're showing a couple really cool pictures from the sessions. Mike, my question about the recording process, and maybe next time we can go deeper into this, but I noticed, having grown up recording to the big Akai and Tiak tape machines that were as big as washers and dryers in the garage, I noticed some tape machines. How much of this was analog recorded? How much of it was digital, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh God, that's a really good question. I believe that it was really, I want to say all digital, but
okay.
I'm so involved from the musicianship part of it. I honestly don't remember that particular detail. It may have been actually digital. I don't remember using actually seeing a tape threaded. So it's probably pretty much all digital. But we got to consider, if you look to the credits, that's not the only studio I recorded at. I don't want, I was thinking I recorded the whole album there. I didn't. That the Hall of Justice came up at a particularly perfect time, because I'd assembled all these recordings. I tried working with all these people, and it just didn't work out in terms of moving forward with all these people. And I knew what I needed to kind of get to start to get to the home stretch. And so Hall of Justice was great because I had all these parts. I had Paul Davis, who I met through a colleague at a Museum of Pop Culture, which I volunteered at in Seattle at one time. And Paul Davis added drums to Because You Win, and Natural, and sang pretty much backup on every song except maybe two being Dance of the Little Guys and The Evergreens. The Evergreens is the only song where there are no harmonies whatsoever, whereas harmonies all over the place, all over the album. But Paul did a great job as far as the backup vocals go, because I wanted a voice other than my own, and another sound. And Mike Davis was doing the engineering, and he was really, really great for me as far as that goes. So it's a really cool little studio. It's not really huge. It's like really just 2 rooms and kind of a back area, but it has a really good vibe to it. Again, I think it was mainly digital.
Cool. Thanks for answering that. So, folks, we're going to do a whole other episode sometime soon.
You said 2 questions. That's one.
Yeah, here comes the other one. So, and that episode's going to be filled with a lot of Yes anecdotes from his interactions with Yes members and mine, and Steve's had a few. Yes, so let's tease that out, Mike, with one of your, let's pick a funny Yes anecdote. There's a picture of you with the band and you're laughing and Steve Howe is talking. What's the story there?
Oh, what's funny was they were offering at Red Rocks in Denver. You ever been to Red Rocks? You know of Red Rocks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I've always wanted to play there.
Great.
Yeah.
I saw Rush there too. So.
Oh, nice.
But on this particular tour, it was interesting because it was alternating between a downpour and then just suddenly stopped. There was no rain at all. But they were selling the opportunity to go backstage and take a picture with Yes. But I was already working for the band, so they just let me take a couple of pictures anyway. So I was standing there, and I'm standing in front of Yes, and you're probably showing the picture, right?
Yeah.
And before that, I went like this, like here they are, like that. And the next picture, Steve's just saying, no, you're not gonna do that. And that's why I'm looking at him and laughing there, because
funny.
Because of his reaction to that.
That's funny. Was that the Full Circle tour?
That was the Open Your Eyes tour around the time.
No.
Because Rick is in the picture.
I have to go look at Forgotten Yesterdays to see the actual date, but obviously it was a tour with Rick.
Yeah.
So
I didn't see Rick.
And it wasn't the Inflatables tour. I think it was. I don't know. I have to go back and look.
Inflatables tour.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I do. That just sounds funny.
With Case Ascension.
Yeah.
With
Songs
Mind
from
Drive.
Songus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
35th,
the 35th
anniversary tour.
Right. Yeah, but I love that better. The Inflatables tour. I could picture a funny album cover for that.
Yeah.
Actually,
The Yes logo looks like an inflatable, like letters, like the first album.
No, I think it'd be funny to have inflatable doll versions of each of them, but with clothes on, of course.
You know what? The interesting thing about that tour, you know what I'm talking about? That these gigantic Roger Dean inflatables behind them, is that it was painted to where when UV light hit it, it had a really intense effect,
like luminescence.
And they had the rehearsals in Yakima, which is east of Seattle,
yeah,
a few miles. And I think the band already gone home, and they were testing the UV effect. And I was like, it just jumped out at you. It was like really, really intense. But I think there was some law or rule or some problem. I can't remember if it was medical or lawful as far as not using that. So they never used the UV effect on those inflatables.
Interesting. Well, Mike, thanks so much for taking time to join us on Yesshift. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about scheduling the next one after the year gets going. That's going to be a very fun episode. Steve, any closing words? I'm sorry, Jasmine or Steve actually first.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so just to reiterate, Creatus fan, great album. It's, it feels like it has some of the stuff that people love about classic rock. Like it's not a metal album, but it has like a pedal to the metal feel to it. It's got a good pace.
Has momentum, yeah.
Yeah, momentum. That's a good word for it. So yeah, I think people will really enjoy this, so they should check it out. And did you want me to do the plugs or?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, people can find Yesshift on anchor.fm/Yesshift for the audio, and you'll see all the podcasting platforms we're on. And go to facebook.com/Yesshift if you want to see the video versions of many of our episodes. And you can also email us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Send in your thoughts on anything we talk about, and we might read it on the show because we love hearing from listeners and whatnot.
And we're always happy to receive suggestions for episodes. We've actually gotten a couple good ones that didn't even occur to us. So it's your show to comment, write us. And Mike, thanks again. We really, really loved having you on.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
See you all soon.